Hello, Somerville. My name is Ed Hallen, and welcome back to the Somerville Labor Show. It's really amazing. We're back here in the studio. I'm excited to be in the studio. Of course, we're Zooming, because Zooming is there's nothing else we can do with it, man. This is going on 24/7 everywhere. But we're thankful that we can at least connect this way. And today's episode really is important because we're talking about affordable housing. And in the pandemic, it's really important that we have this conversation today. I've got two great guests on the show, but before I introduce them, what I'd like to talk about here is that over the past 20 years, the city of Somerville has become unaffordable for longtime residents who are forced to move to other communities. The same can be said for municipal city workers who are heading north and west of Boston in increasing numbers. This pandemic has exacerbated affordable housing and has now become even more urgent in the city of Somerville for many that are out of work and worried about displacement if they haven't already been displaced due to this pandemic. I'd like to read you something that was in the, it was an op-ed by Ben Ewan Campen. He's a Ward 3 city councilor here in Somerville, in the Somerville Times in October 2020. Quick paragraph. According to Somerville Public Schools, at least 42% of our students are classified by state as economically disadvantaged, and 37% of Somerville families are severely rent burdened, meaning they spend more than half of their income on housing costs. To put it simply, many thousands of Somerville families are perilously close to, or already have been, forced out of our community by housing costs. The affordable housing wait list in Somerville is so long that at the current rate, it will take 3 decades to find a home for every Somerville resident currently in need. And in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic, our housing crisis is threatening to transform into a catastrophic tsunami of evictions for lower income families, disproportionately affecting people of color. I thought that was important that I mentioned that because we have a lot of people that are living in the city right now that are really being pushed out and leaving, and they don't want to leave. And that's really concerning to me. Now, this is nothing new, and it's been happening for many years. A city like Somerville that has grown so rapidly due to demographics and growth, as well as the Green Line extension and the new high school, will make it even more attractive. Restaurateurs, bio companies, and yes, cannabis shops have flocked to Somerville. They've left behind the families and workers that must find a new place to live instead of their own hometown. There are those that say gentrification is just, it's just the way it is. It's normal. It happens. But it doesn't have to happen, and it doesn't have to happen here, and it doesn't have to constantly go on as it has. So it's time to begin to make a change. This subject has been discussed for decades, and from workers' perspective, and I am a worker in the city of Somerville, and I am also a municipal leader in the city of Somerville as a union president. Whether you're a union or non-union, they cannot afford to live in the city where they were raised, schooled, and have lived most of their lives. So what we really want to know is, what can the city of Somerville do to help its workforce remain in the city? There is one city that has decided to make a bold move with a union that's in the city of Boston, and that is the SEIU Local 888 that seems to have gotten ahead of the crisis back in 2004 when they signed an agreement with then Mayor Thomas Menino titled the Boston Housing Trust Fund. My guest is no stranger to the show, and I was joking earlier that he's probably like my co-host here. Rand Wilson, SEIU Local 888, Chief of Staff, Rand Wilson, and Antonio Nunes, Director of Member Services and Operations, SEIU Local 888. And I want to thank you both for being on the show. It's a really important topic. And I don't think people really understand exactly how valuable it is to have a Boston Housing Trust Fund. So I want to ask Rand to open up here. And if you can take us back to 2004 and why the Municipal Housing Trust Fund went from just a concept where it is now that turned into a major benefit to city workers. Can you tell us that, Rand, please?
Sure. Ed, it's a pleasure to be here, and once again, I'm excited about this particular topic for the Somerville Labor Show. Just for your viewers' sake, SEIU Local 888 is a union of state, municipal, public, and private sector employees across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have about 8,000 members in about 200 different chapters, including about 1,800 members in the city of Boston. And one of the things that the union contract has had for many years is a residency requirement. And I believe some of those union contracts also have a residency requirement. And believe me, back in 2004, the crisis of gentrification, the crisis of skyrocketing housing prices, and our members with low pay, not being, spending an inordinate amount of their take-home pay on housing costs. So here's the city of Boston expecting, actually mandating that employees live in the city, but not paying them the wages that would make that possible. So after making a pretty big issue about this with the public, with the people that receive our services, and with elected officials, we were able to persuade then Mayor Menino that something needed to be done to give Local 888 members support to live and work in the city. And that's where the trust fund emerged as a concept, and it was funded by the city of Boston, made an initial down payment to put enough money into that trust fund so that members could take advantage, that members that lived in the city could take advantage of the programs of the trust fund that Antonio is going to describe to remain in the city and as employees.
Thank you, Rand. I want to make a quick correction, though. As far as city workers go, that's no longer, I don't believe that's any longer a requirement. In fact, firefighters and police, I don't believe that they have to live in the city. I think going way back to the Capuano administration, they were recognizing, even though it was in place back then, I think they were recognizing that it's becoming more and more difficult. And I think that's kind of been relaxed and lifted a bit here. That's what I understand. So I want to turn to.
What about for your members, Ed?
No, same. It's basically the same thing. They've had to move to higher ground now, and it's really not an issue to get to move out. But when you're going 40, 50 miles away from the city and crossing over a border, it's making it really difficult. It really is, and we need to have this discussion. That's why you guys are here.
I want to add one thing, Ed, which is philosophically, you can see why any administration, any municipal government would want its employees to live in the city where they work. That's just good business. It's good personnel practice. Mm-hmm. It's a green approach to human resource management, right? Because they're not having to commute so far, and it's very positive for for somebody that's connected to the city as a homeowner or a renter. They're going to be a better employee. They're going to be more in touch.
I don't disagree, but that's in a perfect labor world, to be able to be really invested in the community and spending all of your time here. I mean, I know most of us who work for the city of Sun, we spend more time here than we do in our own homes. Even if we live out of the city. And I appreciate that, Rand. Antonio, I want to turn to you. Can you give me a brief overview of the Boston Housing Trust Fund and what benefits, just what they have currently? What are some of the major components of this agreement?
Yes, just to clarify, Boston still requires our members to live the first 10 years of working for the city of Boston. You are required to work in the city of Boston. For the
first 10 years, and then it's relaxed, and you could leave if you need to.
That is correct.
Got it.
So, as Rand previously mentioned before, the program was started back in 2004. There was an endowment of $500,000 that was put in a trust fund. This trust fund is administered by 4 trustees on the city side, 4 trustees on the union side. There's a co-chair on the city side. It is a co-chair on the union side, which I take up that co-chair seat. The programs that we have now, when it was initially established, it was established with the home ownership program. The The home ownership program is to assist members to be able to purchase home in the city of Boston. So it gives them the money towards the down payment. There was also an emergency assistance program. The emergency assistance program is to assist members with any emergency that's related to housing, such your boiler goes, you're behind on your utility bills, you're behind on your rent. The emergency assistance will assist you with that.
Are these, can I ask a question on that? Are these,
Yes.
now the fuel assistance, emergency assistance, are they loans or are they like given out as like part of a, you know, a stipend to people to help them? How's that done?
They consist of a grant and a loan portion.
Yep,
The loan portion is an interest-free loan that is paid, interest-free loan to our members. That loan interest is paid by the Housing Trust Fund. What's also great about that loan is that the Housing Trust Fund backs that loan. So whether a member has no credit or bad credit, which no credit is bad credit, we back that loan on their behalf. So they are guaranteed to get that loan from the City of Boston Credit Union. There is an exception to that rule. As long as they don't owe no outstanding debt to the City of Boston Credit Union, that is how they receive the loan and the grant portion.
that's very interesting. So this is basically, is there a limit to how many people that you give it to? And I don't even know where this money comes from. We're trying to understand this because we're looking at something here.
The trustees are required, the first meeting of every year is our annual meeting. We try to develop a budget, but not great at that piece of the program. It's tough to set a budget on this. It's tough because there's a demand and there's how much money we have. We have done some things that has been able to put us in a very healthy budget-wise. We're extremely healthy right now budget-wise. It's by implementing different structures within each program. The way it's funded is that in 2004, our members were willing to give some things back in a contract with the city agreeing to build in its housing trust fund, and the city puts 5 cents per member per hour in the trust fund.
Okay, that's okay. I was wondering where some of the money had come from on that.
5 cents per member per hour.
Right. So it's administered. You're on the committee that administers it.
It is administered by 4 members on the management side and 4 members on the union side.
Okay. And then is there a cap in any one year?
The cap is based on how much money we bring in. So there is a portion of the money that goes into the corpus. So there is a corpus. Any trust fund, you need a corpus. What's great about the corpus is that is money you put aside to invest. You invest that money, that allows you to bring in additional money. What's great about our program, the trust fund, is it's within the City of Boston's Treasury Department. The funds are kept within the City of Boston. And when the city invests its funds, it goes as part of that pie. It's a small piece of the pie, but we get advantage because it's a bigger piece of the pie. So when the money gets invested, we get a better return back.
Okay, makes sense. Rand, I got a question for you. We know that Somerville has an affordable housing trust fund. Am I correct by saying that? It does, okay?
Yes.
So many cities have housing trust funds, right? Affordable housing trust funds. We understand that. What do you know about the city's current affordable housing trust fund? And is it any comparison to what we're talking about right now, as far as a municipal?
It's a possible, the city's affordable housing trust fund is so many cents per square foot on development over, I think, 3 or 4 different units, right? So anybody trying to create housing in the city, if they're building housing, they're gonna kick in a little bit of money per square foot. I don't know the exact formula, but they're kicking in money per square foot into the city's trust fund. That's relevant because that could be, one of the ways in which we could seek to fund a municipal workers' housing trust fund. But ultimately, the best way to fund that is the way that we did in the city of Boston. A large grant from the city to kick it off, and then so many cents per hour from every employee to build the Affordable Housing Municipal Fund.
Okay,
But there's no reason why, we couldn't look at so many cents on development from into what they call a linkage fee, similar to what the Affordable Housing Trust Fund currently does. But just to be clear, the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund is not designated to or tailored to the municipal worker.
exactly.
That's what we need.
Exactly, that's the difference. So for me to be clear, I want to make sure there has been passed, it's a 20% inclusionary zoning that was passed by the city council, right? And developers who build 10 units or more must offer 20% of that as affordable housing. And although that's a big step to helping a demand for affordable housing, it's not really even close to what the city needs. Am I correct?
And that's different than the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Right,
The 20% inclusionary housing is, they have to set aside 20% of the units. So if you're doing 500 units, you got to set aside 100
Right.
as affordable. But they're not designated to go to city employees.
no, they're not, and that's why we're talking about this right now on the show. Antonio, I know I probably asked this before, but would you happen to know the approximate percentage of workers that have taken advantage of this program over the years? If you took a guess.
We have about a couple hundred members a year that takes advantage of this program. So it's in that range. There are other programs that we have that I didn't get a chance to mention those. Not only the emergency and the home ownership assistance, we also have a rental assistance that help our members move. And if you're moving within Boston, so even if you're a member who currently lives outside of Boston, you want to move back into Boston, the rental assistance would assist you with that. It would assist you with first month, last month, security deposit, any moving costs that you would potentially have. We also have the fuel assistance program, which will assist you with the high cost of fuel during the winter months. So if you heat oil, gas, or electrical, we will assist you with that process. And we also have a home ownership program. The home improvement program.
Mm-hmm.
These are for our members who currently own a home and would like to update their kitchen, update their bathroom, or whatever it is. That assistance will help them with improving their home.
So that's pretty amazing. These are for municipal workers. This is something, where are we on this? I mean, we're nearly 20 years after this happened. And really, I'm glad we're having this conversation. I really am. So I got a question for both of you. You can answer it separately or whatever. But so do you believe that the Housing Trust Fund could be successful in Somerville? And if so, what would some of the key provisions be in order to get it kicked off? I'll ask you first, Fran, then I'll go to Antonio.
Sure. I think, first of all, we have well, let's talk about the key ingredient is going to have to be some sort of major grant. Doesn't have to be as big as $500,000, but it does need to be a major grant from the city to kick it off, just like we did in Boston. Somerville's not as big, so proportionately it could be much less, but we're going to have a major grant, and then an ongoing funding mechanism. And whether that's so many cents per hour or a linkage fee on development, I think the funding formula is going to have to be built, that's tailored to the needs of Somerville and to the capacity of Somerville. The way that we can get there is, this year is the municipal election. And I think we have to educate the city council and, everybody running for any position in the city.
I was going to ask you that. That's important, to go through that.
We're going to have to educate people about, the benefits of keeping the city employees in the city, how that's a good management, good for morale, good for city services, and good for Somerville, and get people to commit to making this happen. And once we have the political commitment to making it happen, then we can form a subcommittee or get a group together and, look at the best way to go about funding it for the city of Somerville. But let me flip it to Antonio.
Yeah,
What do you
I
think?
want to hear what Antonio has to say, what he thinks about the key provisions that'll get us over the hump where we need to be here.
So I just want to remind Rand, when Boston made that endowment, that initial investment, the median house cost of housing in 2004 in Boston was $200,000. The median cost of housing in Boston right now is in $600,000+. So that same amount of deposit right now would not make a difference. And I can only assume that Somerville has gone up in the same trajectory.
Yeah.
It will take that initial investment to build this program. And that initial investment is important because that's where you grow the interest. That's what sits in a corpus and continues to grow interest that you can bring additional funding to help you assist your members. What I'm finding now is looking into the future of the Housing Trust Fund is that the pricing in Boston and Somerville, I would only assume is the same, has gotten so ridiculous that these members of ours who live in Boston are starting to become homeless. We have approximately 300 members who work for the Boston Public Health Commission. A lot of these members service our homeless individuals in the city of Boston. These same members are working in these shelters, are also tend to find themselves being homeless themselves because they've been priced out of the market. The market's off the chart, not only to purchase, but where are you gonna rent?
So are you telling me that you have actual municipal workers that are homeless?
Yes. But we're seeing it more than we've seen it before, which
That's incredibly sad.
it's becoming an issue because Boston is requiring our members to have residency 10 years in Boston. So you have to show that you're a resident of Boston in 10 years. What happens when you're homeless?
Well,
You can't show residency. So we're tending to having those issues. And that's where this is starting to move towards. Our members are starting to become deal with homelessness because the price market's off the chart.
they have to do something about this. So building, to me, is really important. You take a big plot of land, no one's saying you got to spread it out a half a mile. You can certainly build up. And the biggest concern has always been when you take a look at Mystic Avenue, and you take a look at a project, they call it the projects. That's really not what we're looking for. That's really not what I don't think that's what the future should be when it comes to affordable housing and municipal housing. That's not what it should be. So I think there's a real concern here. I mean, I'm actually shocked. I had no idea that we have city workers that are actually homeless. I mean, something has to be done about that. That's something that's a major. I mean, Marty Walsh is leaving. The next mayor, they've got their hands full. I can tell you right now, for sure. I'm glad you mentioned that, Antonio, because I really had no idea about that. I think that it really is. It's hopefully something can be done about that.
It is something the union is concerned about. Local 88 is starting to look at that to see are there programs, are there some sort of assistance that we can either refer our members to or that we can address possibly through the Housing Trust Fund. So this is something we're concerned about. We'll continue to work at it, and hopefully it's something we'll be able to address.
Well, I appreciate you telling me that. Rand, so here's what I want to know. We've been talking about, we've talked about this in the past. We've had conversations about the pilot program, the payment in lieu of taxes. Colleges have that payment in lieu of taxes. Tufts University, there's also other places that have this thing where they don't pay taxes, but they pay a little bit of money. Would you say, yeah, right, would you say, is that a good resource, a place to get money to fund this Municipal Housing Trust Fund? I know that Marianne Wallace, who's been a big advocate for this, working very hard on this right now, with me and Greg Hill and some other people, and you as well. What do you think about that? How are we could we get some money out of the Pilot Trust Fund to do that?
Well, there certainly is an opportunity there for revenue. That if the large nonprofits in the city of Somerville, like Tufts, like Partners Healthcare, um, and other nonprofit organizations, you know, first of all, we got to get them to commit to paying a payment in lieu of taxes. And then part of that commitment could be a designated amount of money to help municipal employees. I don't see any objection to that. But the first step is a campaign to get these institutions to start paying their fair share in taxes.
Okay, so do you think that the city council would be open to that? And to have a discussion like that? What do you think's gonna happen with that?
Well, I think we're gonna need support from the state legislature.
Okay.
To enable us to get a payment in lieu of taxes and have more negotiating power with Tufts partners and with others.
Mm-hmm.
But once that was done, I think you can make the case to the city council and to the mayor that, again, keeping our facilitating or encouraging people to live in the city where they work and making it possible for them to do that on a city worker's salary should be a high priority for Somerville. That's good management.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really do. What about building on a plot of land? We're 4.1 square miles, right? Where are we going to find land where we can build affordable housing, municipal affordable housing blended with, how do we do that? Where do we find it here?
Well, I think there's, we're looking at some very creative partnerships like at Clarendon Hill or with SCC. The SCC is the leading housing developer in Somerville. I could see potentially a partnership with them. We could look at some creative partnerships in some of the areas that are being built out now, like Boynton Yards or Union Square or the industrial park, where we could be creating and building affordable housing or just building housing and then having some of that housing designated as worker housing or municipal worker housing. I think if you look at the city of Cambridge, they just have set aside quite a bit of housing for municipal employees there.
Big money, big city,
Yeah.
much
yeah.
different. I know we want to be Cambridge. I know who.
No, we don't want to be Cambridge.
I'm not saying us. I'm not saying us. I'm speaking in general out here somewhere. Okay.
Oh, okay.
People want to be Cambridge.
If they want to be Cambridge, they should go live there.
Yeah, but that's another whole show, 2 shows. So what about you, Antonio? What about Boston? I mean, what is this? I know it's a big city, but finding a place to build affordable housing, and with union hands, by the way, okay? Because we know there's a lot of safety risks involved. When you start building, we get very concerned about unions not being part of it. What about that? Have you had any challenges with that over there?
Yeah, I think Boston being a little bit bigger, there are still opportunities, but those opportunities are running very short. South End has been fully built out. South Boston's been fully built out. I live in Dorchester. They're building a 15 condo unit right across the street from me. In the next couple years, I think the population just in my street alone, it's going to grow from a couple thousand people in the next couple of years because there's so many developments here. I think there's great opportunity for the city if they're taking it really serious right now. Areas such as Mattapian, it's a part of Boston right now that hasn't really been tapped into as much as they're currently doing Dorchester right now. So there's still areas in Hyde Park. That you can build these affordable units and be able to give your employee somewhere to live.
Well,
and one other thing is, with the new zoning overlay in the city of Somerville and the increased proximity of residents to mass transit, we need to look at every subway station as an opportunity to go up higher, right? So as the Green Line gets built out and with the Orange Line and the Red Line in Somerville already, we want transit oriented growth near these subway stations. So there should be opportunity to go higher than the current or the old zoning. The new zoning allows these buildings to go up higher, so that's another opportunity for more affordable housing.
Well, you know what, I believe in the city of Somerville, and I believe that if they can do it, they will do it here. I think it will get done, and I'm going to tell you why. It's not just because of the political leaders that we have, but it's also about the groups that we have, the amazing people that really hold everybody accountable. They're the watchdogs. They're watching, you know what I'm saying, over this whole thing to make sure that we have what we need to take care of people. I mean, you know, housing, to me, it's a major component in attracting and keeping workers invested in the city of Somerville, spending their money here. I agree with you, Rand, right from the get-go on that. And we have to do that. I mean, watching a fleet of vehicles drive north like a caravan, it's just really not the way it should be. I mean, I'm looking more at, you know, apprenticeships, you know, really beginning to go back, way back the way it was, the way it should be, to train people, get them what they need, and give them, you know, a hand, not a handout, remember that one? Okay, a hand up, help. They need that. And I'm really, you know, excited about this, and I really wanted this show to happen. So the primary purpose of this trust fund is to assist lower paid employees in paying the high cost of living in Boston. Am I correct, Antonio? That's really this is it. That's it in a nutshell. You've got homeless people who are city employees there. And
Yes.
it's really stunning to hear that. So I think it's a big opportunity for everyone. I think it's a big win on the city side, unions, because you know, we have members that are always leaving the city, as I said, and we just don't want them to leave anymore. We love them. We want them to stay here. They grew up here. Same thing in Boston. Boston is an incredibly diverse community. And, you know, I think once you lose your diversity, you seem to lose part of your soul. You know, and that's kind of what's happening here. I do think Somerville will embrace this. And I really want to, you know, thank you, Rand, for being on the show. And Tony, I want to thank you as well. Rand, you know, I don't know when you're going to be back again, okay? But this is the short version of your Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Municipal Housing Trust Fund. I want to do this again, and we'll pick it up from there, because we really need to do that. And I love these little closing quotes that I see every now and then, because we're going to be doing a series of show. Everything we do is COVID. I think everybody understands that. It's going to be like that for quite some time. The vaccines, the rollout, everybody's looking for that. We've got upcoming shows about Tuskegee, which was a major issue way back in the 60s and 70s about vaccines and why people, you know, and people of color specifically they may not want to take part in that. And that's something that's really important right now. And I've got some nurses coming on the show from the Nurses Association. I think it's going to be a really good show. I'm looking to talk about that. But here's a closing quote that I have. If you weren't religious, you probably are now. The longest COVID surge has left nurses and doctors exhausted and sometimes hopeless. That's from the Wall Street Journal. And, you know, we are optimistic. I know I'm optimistic, and I'm looking forward. I just want to let everybody know at home that I want you all to please hang in there and hang in there with us. And, you know, don't give in, don't give up, and keep yourself safe. If you have to wear 2 masks, wear 2 masks. The science is real. Please pay attention to it. And Rand Wilson, I want to thank you for being on the show. I know you got a hard out on this one. He's got his red shirt on. Someday we're going to talk about the story why you have to wear red shirt on Thursdays. I just want to let you know that. And Antonio, thank you very much as well. Hope you can be back on the show, because we're going to have more questions, because I know that we're going to be moving in the right direction on this, Municipal Housing Trust Fund. But we want to have that. So in unit of strength,
Let's make this one of the top issues in 2020, top election issues in 2021. Get a city council that's committed to affordable housing for its municipal employees.
I like that. You know, we've been talking about this for a long time. You know, this is I've been.
Time to talk is over. Let's make it happen.
Well, you know me, Rand. I was envious of this SEIU Local 888 deal that was made, and because I've been watching people leave the city, and it's sad to see them go. I watch employees leave the city where I work for the city of Somerville, and I'm sad to see them go, because they're my friends. and let's keep them here, all right? So
Keep it real.
I don't know if you can see that. When we fight, we win. Probably not, but it's there. I want to thank you for being on the show. Okay, and unity is strength. Thank you.